Right now, we are living through a massive, once-in-a-generation shift in the global financial system. But this time, the gold rush isn't happening with prospectors and pickaxes. Nope, it's happening with blockchains and balance sheets. And in this explainer, we're going to give you the map to navigate it. First, we're going to look at how history seems to be repeating itself, with echoes of a past gold rush. Then, we'll take a hard look at the unsettled financial map of today. We'll dive into the new assets that investors are prospecting, check out a massive $16 trillion frontier on the horizon, and finally, we'll give you a compass for what comes next. To really get a handle on the scale of the changes happening right now, we've actually got to look backwards. There was another moment, just over 50 years ago, that completely upended the financial system and really set the stage for the world we all live in today. And what's so fascinating is how today's leaders are talking about it. This quote, which is adapted from comments by a top European leader, isn't just a history lesson, it's a warning shot. It's pointing to a painful lesson we learned about relying too much on a single currency, a lesson that's more relevant than ever now that we have multiple global powers all competing for influence. This timeline really tells the whole story. For decades, the world ran on a gold standard, simple enough. Then, in 1944, the Bretton Woods Agreement made the US dollar king, the world's reserve backed by gold. But then, bam, 1971, President Nixon cuts the cord. The dollar is no longer convertible to gold. Suddenly, it was only backed by faith. And that's the system we've been living in for over 50 years. The big question is, are we about to see the next great shift? Okay, so how does all that history connect to what's happening right now? Well, that system that was born back in 1971, it's starting to show some serious cracks. The financial map we've all been using for decades is starting to look pretty unsettled. And listen, this isn't just some fringe theory. The people who manage the world's money are getting worried. Geopolitical conflict is now their #1 threat. A huge majority, 74%, are worried about inflation coming back with a vengeance. And over half think other countries are just going to stop following the US Federal Reserve's lead. The real takeaway here is a growing fear that the dollar's reign is ending. This chart right here puts some hard numbers to that fear. Back in 1999, the US dollar made up over 70% of all the money held in reserve by the world's central banks. Fast forward to the end of 2023, and that number is down to just over 58%. It's a slow, steady decline for sure, but the trend is impossible to ignore. Countries are quietly moving away from the dollar. So what are they moving into? Well, in a move that feels like history repeating itself, they're buying gold. And not just a little bit of it, a lot of it. We've seen some countries increase their gold holdings by massive amounts in just a single year. This isn't just an investment, you see. It's a strategic move to protect themselves from a world so dependent on the dollar. This is the modern gold rush, and it's happening at the highest levels. So if entire nations are rushing back to physical gold, where does that leave everyone else, the individual and institutional investors? Well, this is where the picture gets really, really interesting because there's a new contender in the ring challenging the old champ. On one hand, you have gold, physical, tangible, trusted for centuries. On the other, you have Bitcoin, digital, programmable, and now it's being adopted by major Wall Street firms through these new ETFs. One is the ultimate defensive play. The other is a high-risk, high-reward bet on what the future might look like. The debate is no longer if Bitcoin has a role to play, but what exactly that role is going to be. And this chart, man, it perfectly captures the wild nature of this new asset. Depending on who you talk to, Bitcoin's price in a couple of years could be anywhere from a pretty bearish $37,000 all the way up to a super cycle high of $200,000. That massive range tells you everything you need to know about both the incredible opportunity and the stomach-churning volatility that comes with prospecting for digital gold. But here's the thing. Beyond gold, beyond Bitcoin, a lot of the smartest people in finance believe the real digital gold rush, the next truly massive wealth, isn't about a new currency. It's about completely transforming all the old assets. Welcome to the $16 trillion frontier. The key concept here is called real-world asset, or RWA, tokenization. I know, it's a mouthful. But put simply, it's the process of taking something real, like a piece of a skyscraper or a bond, and turning its ownership into a digital token. A token that you can then trade instantly, 24/7, anywhere in the world. And this isn't some far-off idea for the future. It is happening right now. And it's happening at a mind-blowing pace. In just one 6-month period recently, this market grew by a staggering 260%. That is a massive signal that big money is moving in, and it's moving in fast. So just how big can this thing get? Well, the Boston Consulting Group predicts a $16 trillion market by 2030. To put that number into perspective, that is nearly the entire annual economic output of China. We're talking about the financial equivalent of discovering a whole new continent just waiting to be developed. And hey, it's not just one group saying this. Look at the forecasts from other heavy hitters like McKinsey and Citigroup. Now, the numbers might dance around a bit, but the consensus is crystal clear. We are talking about a multi-trillion-dollar opportunity. The fundamental plumbing of the financial world is being rebuilt, and that could unlock unbelievable value. Okay, so we've looked at the echoes of history, we've seen the cracks in the current system, and we've glimpsed this massive new frontier opening up. But the biggest question of all is, what does any of this mean for you? How do you even begin to prepare for a shift this big? Well, when the pros face this much uncertainty and opportunity all at once, many of them turn to a really powerful but simple idea. It's called the barbell strategy, and it's a way of thinking that can help you build a portfolio that's ready for anything. I want you to literally picture a barbell. On one heavy, stable end, you have your defense. These are things like gold and other real assets that protect you from chaos and inflation. And on the other end, you have your offense. These are your carefully chosen bets on the future. Things like AI and this new world of tokenized assets. You're basically preparing for the worst while still positioning yourself for the absolute best. All right, let's boil all of this down to 3 core principles for this new era. First, diversify into scarcity. Think of things like gold and certain digital assets as your long-term protection. Second, access the illiquid. Tokenization could soon open up investment areas that were previously only for the ultra-wealthy. And third, prioritize personalization. The old days of just buying an index fund and forgetting about it, they're probably over. This new world demands a more thoughtful, customized approach. You know, the original gold rushes created unbelievable wealth. They built entire cities out of nothing, and they completely reshaped the economic map of the world. So as we stand here, right at the beginning of this new digital gold rush, the question we're all left with is, what empires will this one build, and how will it reshape our world?